Also, what is a melt? Do you guys know? Is that like a broadcasting term?
That would make sense for Dylan.
But it would. That's what I'm saying.
Why?
Honestly,
What
I'm
is?
like a dunce.
That's a
You know what I mean?
Wait, Serge, let me see the setup again. Gives me a nice laugh every time.
Wait, you got a ladder?
Yeah. Welcome back, everybody. And we finally come to the end of another NFL season on the Back Pocket Podcast. Super Bowl predictions. Exciting. A good game. Kansas City Chiefs, Philadelphia Eagles, the winners of the AFC and NFC matchup in the Super Bowl. We're here to break down the game. This is our fifth NFL season, predicting throughout the regular season, playoffs, and then we're finally here at the Super Bowl once again. And as always, I am joined by my favorite co-hosts, Suraj Kadali and Charlie Nidell. Gentlemen, how do we feel? And
I
I'm
know.
just waiting for my Venmos.
That's till the end of the season, so it's not over.
yes, it is. Charlie's
Sir,
2 games
you've been
up.
owing 20 bucks since week 8.
Yeah. I mean, this is an interesting one. We only get this once a year. It's only one game. So we don't have to bounce back and forward. I feel like this is a game we can do the most analysis on because it's the only one. Gentlemen, the Chiefs face off against the Eagles once again in the Super Bowl. We see Hurts again. We see the Chiefs. Obviously, different storyline. You would say this is the strongest Eagles team maybe ever, one could say, roster-wise, maybe ever. Obviously, the addition of Saquon Barkley, defensively, coaching-wise, they have an impenetrable roster as it seems coming into this game. On the other hand, we have the Kansas City Chiefs, who as well just don't seem to make mistakes or lose in the playoffs. Patrick Mahomes looking for a three-peat, which has never been done. You would think if Mahomes wins this one, it might take another or might not for people to say he's the GOAT. And already people are calling him the best quarterback of all time. So you'd think if he gets this one, he's knocking on the doorsteps of Tom Brady's legacy. I mean, gentlemen, I pose it to you all the way. I think, what do you think of this game first off in terms of favorites? Obviously, so many storylines that we can get into in terms of these two teams, but it's been a great playoff so far, and we see these two teams match up. How do you feel about this Super Bowl matchup?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think this is history, no matter what. I mean, Kansas City, I believe the first team ever to be one game away from a three-peat. If they win, obviously they are the first team ever to three-peat, which would put them in conversations where are they the best team of all time, which would
Yeah.
put Mahomes in, is he the best quarterback of all time? Because even the great Tom Brady's never done that. So I think after this one, if he does pull this off against, again, what we would say is a superior roster in Philadelphia, I agree with you. I think absolutely conversations would start to be had.
So
But
I
about
want
the,
to.
yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, sir, not to interrupt. I think it's a good question to pose before we really get into the game. Do you guys think if Patrick Mahomes wins this Super Bowl, three peats, no team has ever done it against an incredibly good Eagles team, is Patrick Mahomes the best quarterback of all time? In your opinion, just flat out.
No.
I'm gonna agree. But it's
And
like it's a
Charlie,
it's
is
a more
that solely
hesitant no.
based on Brady's just being able to win in championships?
I mean, longevity is a real factor,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
that's why the
Yeah.
GOAT's the GOAT, because 4 Super Bowls is a ton, but Brady's got 7. So
Mhm.
at the end of the day, if Mahomes plays until he's 42 and continues at this pace, absolutely he's the GOAT. But as of right now, even with a fourth Super Bowl, it's a clear number 2, but it's not number 1.
Do you think he
And
needs to get seven or more to be the best?
Possibly.
I don't think so.
Um,
I think he needs to be within range, but I mean, what he's done just like to like start his career. I mean, like you look at all the metrics, he's ahead of Brady's timeline in terms of Super Bowls right now. Well, actually no, I think he's like same
Like
trajectory
even.
as
Yeah.
Brady's Super
Yeah.
Bowls, but he would be ahead of Brady's trajectory if he wins the Super Bowl. He's got more MVPs at this time than Brady did, more passing yards, more everything, honestly. And he's been doing it much more efficiently. Obviously, different game back then. A lot, I would say, kind of more offensive friendly, but at the same time, we're also seeing a lot more teams run the ball more than even in Brady's era, honestly. So, I mean, again, it's really tough to compare eras. People will always, of course, talk about that Chiefs Bucks Super Bowl, the one Super Bowl Mahomes didn't win in his career against Tom Brady. Um, And it does have legs, although I do believe also Tampa Bay were just so much better on every facet than Kansas City going into that game. Obviously, Mahomes had the terrible offensive line. He had multiple drops from his receivers. Um, Obviously, I know it's making excuse, but at the end of the day, I think that is important context. But there are some people that will say no matter what Mahomes does, even if he wins Super Bowls every year until the end of his career, that he won't be the GOAT. I think that's crazy. I think what we're looking at here right now is already the clear second best quarterback of all time. He's got 3 Super Bowls. He's got kind of just no one's done what he's done at this pace in his career, not even Brady. I feel like it's safe to say that. And he is starting to approach that territory, especially coming into a game where he could make history again.
Yeah.
First team ever to 3-peat.
Yeah, and I think the whole thing with Mahomes is look, yeah, I would agree. I still think Brady is the best, but I think you look at Mahomes in every other facet besides winning. I think he's a better quarterback
I would
in
say
every
even winning.
other.
I think the only thing that I would
Yeah,
sorry to
you
cut you
could.
off, but I just think
Yeah,
longevity. It's just that Brady has like a much longer resume.
yeah.
I think that's why it's just so hard. Even if he's been doing it better than Brady to this point in his career, you still got to make sure
Still
that he
have
kind
years
of he
left.
fills in the gaps, which I
Yeah,
think what he's doing right now, the way he's also honestly refined his game style to where earlier in his career you would say, oh, maybe he'll fall off earlier. He's got a much like a scrambling profile where he relies on his legs, he relies on his big arm. Now he's like a much more of a pocket quarterback, probably the best cerebral quarterback in football. He's going to be doing this for what is he, 28, 29? He's going to be doing this, in my opinion, at least another 10 years. So I do think he will go down as the GOAT by the
yeah,
end of his
Well,
career.
for sure. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing for him right now. If he wants to do that, it's all about longevity because that's what Brady's had that nobody else has really had to the same degree. And the big advantage that Brady had is that Brady played from, I believe, age 22 to 40, 44,
45,
45.
45.
nuts,
And
nuts.
Insane.
Mahomes' rookie season, his true rookie season came at age 25, 24.
25, I
Um,
think.
I think it was no,
so
I think it was 24.
Yeah,
Let me
yeah.
check that. I'm gonna check
No,
that.
possibly
no, but
24, and then
yeah, but that's when
he's
he
got to
kind of
go
came in
play
late.
until he's 40 at least to even have a chance because Brady, the sheer numbers that Brady has posted are just kind of unmatchable for a
Yeah.
quarterback who only plays for 12 years.
So his rookie year he was 23. No,
Okay.
well, his true
But
like his like
yes,
first
true.
His
full
But
first
start.
season
his
starting.
first full season was 24. Yeah, that's right.
No, his first full season starting was 23.
Got it.
It was.
It was 23. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
because it was
Oh, yeah.
his first season was 2018 season. He was born in 1995 September. So
So he was
yeah,
drafted when he was
23.
22 then.
Yes, correct.
And now, oh, okay.
And then
Okay,
he
yeah.
sat his rookie season, and
So
then
I mean, Charlie essentially same as Brady.
I mean, at the start, yeah.
because
Yeah.
Brady
Yeah.
also sat his first
Brady
full
also
season.
had his first season and then came
Yeah.
in the playoffs for like 3 snaps or something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But yeah, I
something like
mean,
that.
obviously that's a huge thing. I want to move on from that, talk about this Super Bowl matchup. I think there's a bunch to talk about here. It's not as easy to just go into the game. So the first thing, again, another question I want to pose to all of us. I want you to now go through and give me who you guys think the most impactful players for each team on both sides of the ball will be in this game. So a player on the Eagles on offense, Chiefs on offense, and two on defense, or a player on the Chiefs on defense
Are
and Eagles
we
on defense.
are
Or
we
maybe
not
it's a
counting
scheme.
quarterback?
Yeah, no, just yeah. I mean, I guess you can consider all of that. Like obviously we know
I'm gonna
Mahomes.
do
You can
yeah.
if the answer for you is Mahomes, or you could go on defense. Like, what do you think the most important thing they do is? Just give me something you think player you kind of get what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah.
I think for offense, I mean, obviously, I think everyone will say Mahomes
But
and
I
for
think,
every time they play.
but we're going to this game think like Mahomes is gonna be Mahomes. You know, like someone who needs to, I guess maybe step up if you want to pose it
Right.
like that.
Okay.
Because like Hurts, you could say still needs to kind of step up in this game, right? Like you could still pose that. Mahomes, I think we know goes into this and plays like Mahomes does.
Mhm.
So take that how you will.
I think okay. Well, then by that criteria, I'm gonna go still kind of another elder statesman, Kelsey.
I like that.
I do think that this Eagles defense, I mean, it's very different. I mean, I know they matched up in 2022, just 2 years ago, but this is a very different team, in my opinion. It's a team that's I feel like a lot stronger up like through the middle, the spine of the team, especially at linebacker. I think a big part of that is their All-Pro linebacker Zach Bond. And he's someone who's been one of the best linebackers, obviously run defending, but also patrolling the middle of the field where Kelsey loves to operate. We saw him; he was a bit more quiet against Buffalo in that AFC Championship. They did end up winning. Mahomes did have a great game, but I still feel like playoff Kelsey. I think he's gonna have to show up in this game. I think it's gonna have to be a big part of this Chiefs offense. Then on defense, I'm gonna go again. I'm not gonna say someone necessarily that is gonna that has to step up, but someone I think is gonna absolutely another time he's gonna wreak havoc. And it's similar actually logic to the game against the Texans. I'm gonna go Chris Jones again. I know this Eagles offensive line. Everyone loves to give them credit, and they're a great offensive line. Don't get me wrong. I know they're the best run blocking unit in the NFL. They're awesome at that. I don't trust their pass protection. They're definitely not the same unit without Jason Kelsey that they were in previous seasons. I think I saw I don't know where. I feel bad I can't source this, but I saw like a stat where like pressure rate given up and their interior. They had two guys, Cam Jurgens, who was at I think like 13% pressure per pass blocking snap, and Mekhi Becton 9%, which is below average numbers for interior groups. And I think Jurgens in particular, I mean, he was playing injured, so I think maybe that could have been playing a factor. But either way, this isn't the same Eagles pass blocking unit that we've seen in recent years. And I think that also honestly shows up in the games where Hurts didn't, I feel like, even against a not lackluster, but a pretty mediocre Washington pass rush, they were able to get to him. And I know Hurts also does hold the ball a bit longer sometimes,
I would say an
but
upper rush. The
this
Washington
is
pass
a
rush is
team.
good.
You,
It's their run defense, I think that's bad.
no,
But
no,
their
it is.
pass rush is
It
good.
doesn't have. It doesn't. No, I agree. I agree. They don't have the names necessarily, but they are an underrated pass rush. But they were able to get to Hurts. The Rams game, we saw Jared Verse. You wrecked havoc on that game, even though, again, like I said, despite the loss, I think Chris Jones is going to have another game where, again, maybe he won't have a sack, but he's going to be living in that Eagles backfield. And I think Jalen Hurts is going to really have to, kind of getting to my Eagles point, he's going to really have to find a way to step up against the pressure, which I believe he's going to face in this game.
Yeah. All right. So, uh, for me, I think somewhat similar in a couple of those. For me on the Chiefs on offense, it's a bit less of a player, more of a group. That offensive line. They've been superb this year, especially the interior. And what was the reason that they lost the Super Bowl against the Bucks? Offensive line. And then they went out and they made the moves they needed to make. But now this Eagles team has such a good defensive line that it may not even be enough. Um, the offensive line has to step up for me, and if you want any chance of winning, you've got to protect Mahomes with your life. And you know, if you earn the phantom roughing the passer calls after you let up a sack, so be it. But the Chiefs' offensive line is the spot, and then defensively, kind of similarly, I'm going with the Chiefs' defensive line. Saquon Barkley's the best running back in the NFL, and stopping him is imperative to winning this game. And you know, making Hurts throw the ball as much as possible is how the Chiefs are going to win because the Chiefs, Trent McDuffie will be Trent McDuffie. Trent McDuffie is a top three corner in the NFL and will shadow AJ Brown or Devonta Smith or whoever he's on all game long and most likely. So forcing Hurts to throw the ball instead of keeping the ball in Saquon's hands is crucial. For the Eagles, I'll go away from picking position groups. I'll say Jalen Hurts on offense because I think the Chiefs' defensive line with Karlaftis and Chris Jones and the other few names on that line that get the most reps will do a better job of slowing down the run game than the Commanders did and the Rams did because they both did terrible jobs. And Barkley can't do it again, can he?
Uh,
Hopefully not.
yeah, I think
Um, yeah, and then Hurts is the key man for them because there are still Eagles fans who are Hurts doubters. He's almost been carried to this Super Bowl, and I don't fully agree with that because Hurts has absolutely played his role in this team. But when if Saquon Barkley is taken out of this game, it comes down to Hurts being able to make throws, and I think he is a quarterback who is well capable of doing that. The problem is, will he do it at a high enough rate in this Super Bowl? I don't know. And then defensively, I'm gonna say Zach Bond. Not to echo that, but you're guarding the best tight end in NFL history, and you've got to do it well. Because if Kelsey starts getting hot, there's no stopping him. We saw his catch against Houston where he did his little half spin that somehow sends smaller defenders for no reason and go for 60 yards or so. And then, you know, Kelsey's the kind of guy who can get 3 touchdowns and you just don't even really know what happened. There was a game last year in the playoffs, right, where he had 4 catches for 4 touchdowns, if I'm not mistaken.
I think, yeah, no, yeah, I forgot who, but I think you're right about that. Yeah.
Kelsey can hit you so quick that these Eagles linebackers need to be, and especially Zach Baun, need to be all over it. Cooper DeJean as well, and Reed Blankenship, they need to be all over Kelsey all game long.
Yeah, I would agree. I think on offense, obviously Mahomes, I think the offensive line as well, but I think it will be very much a trenches battle. I think if you're the Chiefs, you have to keep Saquon outside the numbers. I think you can't let him, do what he does best, which is just gash through the middle of the defensive line, and then he just has a straight shot to the end zone. Obviously, I think keeping the ball out of Hurts' hands, which starts with mitigating Saquon's effectiveness. I think definitely mitigating Saquon's effectiveness in the pass game as well, because we know how good he can be on both sides. Um, and then yeah, I just think if you're Hurts, it's a game that really you just can't make mistakes, right? Because you know that to beat Mahomes, you need the ball more than Mahomes has the ball because he just is an upper echelon talent. We saw Josh Allen played a perfect game, but it's just when if Mahomes has the chance to beat you 9 times out of 10, he does. So I think that's kind of it's not as much of a not that you can't game plan it, but it's just it might come down to those little things like do the Eagles get the ball last with the score to win the game or a score to tie
That's
the
how they
game.
lost it last time
Yeah,
around. So I
because I
think,
think if the Chiefs have the football with a drive to win it, it's as good as this Eagles defense is, it's just they have been there and they can do it. And like I've said, as good as this Eagles defense is, you have Quinyon Mitchell rookie, Cooper DeJean rookie. Look, have been fantastic all year. This is the Super Bowl. We've seen rookies get shaken in Super Bowls, holding, pass interference. I wouldn't be surprised if one of those guys gets a big call, gets a big penalty like that just because of the nerves early in the game. So I think mitigating penalties, which we've seen has been a massive influence in this playoffs, as it usually is another big thing, especially for this Eagles defense that I think could get jumpy, get bitey. Having young players there that have performed really well, but you definitely have to kind of try and mitigate those nerves as much as you can. Although it's hard to do, but yeah, I mean I think look if you're Mahomes and you're the Chiefs, keep Mahomes with the ball. If you have a drive to win it, the Super Bowl's halfway in your hands. And then if you're the Eagles, I think mistakes just can be very can't really happen, and you got to make sure those young guys on defense keep their heads. But
yeah,
let's
no,
let's move more now to the Mahomes Hurts because I think that's a huge part of it. And obviously we know about Mahomes, but when you look at the quarterback matchup, do you think it necessarily has to be Hurts has to outperform Mahomes, which is essentially impossible? I guess that's kind of a stupid question, but like, where do you see that matchup being in terms of I guess it's more on Jalen Hurts because, Mahomes has been here. But what do you think Hurts the storyline is for him coming into this game?
I think for Hertz, it's gonna be they're gonna run the ball to pass basically. It's gonna be a run first offense, and I think one storyline that is really interesting for this is the Chiefs, even though they've won, they haven't really been able to stop the run this playoffs, especially against RB1s. We saw I had it pull up a minute ago. James Cook, he only got 13 well he only had 13 rushes against the Chiefs. He ran for 85 yards on those 13 touches. Joe Mixon, he had 88 yards in that, and also it was only on I believe like uh eight, 18 touches, something like that.
Mhm.
So they weren't and the by the way, the Texans offensive line, we talked about it during that preview. They aren't good like at pass blocking or run blocking, but they were able to gash the Chiefs. And unlike the Texans, unlike the Bills, the Eagles are absolutely content to persist with running the ball over and over. That is the strength of the team. That is the identity of the team, identity of the offensive line, especially at this point. They've got five maulers up front. So I think it's going to be that kind of thing where they're going to be running the ball to pass the ball, especially because they don't want to get their best defensive player, Chris Jones, that many opportunities to just have true like situations where he can just pin his ears back, get after the quarterback, which we know he can do at all times. So I think it's going to be kind of um kind of the opposite to what Hurts's performance in 2022, where he was asked to basically he was asked to carry the load for that team, in my opinion, in that game, and he did. He had arguably the best performance of his career. It's not going to be centered around him this time. And I think the Eagles, funnily enough, even though they're the more run heavy team compared to the Chiefs, they're actually the team that is actually the more explosive team that's going to have that one big Saquon where he takes it 80 yards. And the Chiefs are the more kind of, they're going to bleed the clock. They're going to keep their elite quarterback on the field, even though they're passing the ball more than most teams in the NFL. So I think um, it's going to be a game where I think the Chiefs do dominate time of possession in this Super Bowl.
Yeah, I agree. I think that Hertz is not going to be asked to do the same things that he was asked to do 2 years ago because it was a different team back then. It was a different offense. They had a worse defense. They didn't have the same running quality, and Hertz was excellent. Hertz was as good as he's been in his career. And now he's back on the big stage, and he's not to call him like a side character because he's the quarterback of the team, but he is not the main focus of this offense anymore. When you have Saquon in this offense, there's no one else that can be the main focus because he's that good. And Hertz is going to be asked to manage the game almost. He's going to be asked to throw the ball on third downs sometimes, and take the deep shots when necessary, roll out on play action when necessary. But he is a game manager in this Eagles offense right now, and he's capable of more. But the offense runs better when that's what he does, and he's done really, really well at it this entire season. I mean, 14 wins now 17 wins with only 3 losses. That's because Hurts has been an excellent, excellent quarterback this year. So I don't think he'll surrender to the moment at all. He's not Patrick Mahomes, but he's also not asked to be Patrick Mahomes. So I think he doesn't need to outperform Patrick Mahomes. He just needs his offense to do so. And, at the end of the day, that's all you can ask him to do. And it might happen. Tying it back a little bit to earlier what you said, Kian, though, if you give Mahomes a chance, 9 out of 10 times he'll go out and win it. Interestingly, he's never ever lost when given a chance in the playoffs.
Yeah.
When you look, I saw a stat the other day that said, um, quarterbacks all time that, on game winning or game tying drives in the fourth quarter or overtime of the postseason. Um, the second best, I think, was Drew Brees, who's 3 for 6 in his career, and Patrick Mahomes is 7 for 7.
Really? The Bengals one?
The
Doesn't
Bengals had the
that
ball last.
uh yeah.
So when
Bengals
Okay.
picked
given a
field goal to win
chance,
it.
Patrick Mahomes has always won. So
Yeah,
if
I
you're
mean,
the
literally.
Eagles,
Yeah,
you either need to have the ball last or you need to be up
be
by two
winning by
scores.
2.
And I
Yeah.
don't
Mhm.
really see either happening. It's kind of crazy how Mahomes has changed the game. He just seems to
Yeah.
always get the ball when it matters most.
Charlie, I genuinely think that's what will decide this game. Like, I'm serious. I think if
100%.
the, I genuinely think
Mhm.
whoever has the ball last will probably win the game. I
That's
know that's
Chiefs
like
games.
not that crazy of a thing, but yeah, I think back to the Jalen Hurts thing. Look, I completely agree with you. Like, he's not going to be Mahomes. He's not the focal point of this offense. He's more the distributor of the offense and someone who obviously manages the game. I do think against Mahomes, he's going to have to do a little more than he did the rest of the playoffs because I think Saquon Barkley is fantastic, and I mean, it's not even that crazy to say that he basically has won at them every playoff game. Like, like
He has.
Hurts
He
has
has.
been, Hurts has thrown a touchdown too, but it's literally been Saquon. And I think unlike the rest of the teams they've played, I think the Chiefs will be able to answer every single score that the Eagles do for the most part. Um, so I think if you're Hurts, I still think you might need a little bit more. Like you might need a 40-yard rush. I think I
Which we've
don't.
seen he can do against
Yeah,
the
but
Rams.
I just don't think Hurts can only. I think you might need him to step up a little because Saquon's fantastic. You can only run with him so much, physically for him, stamina wise for him. I think Hurts is still gonna need to have a semi good air game, and like against the Commanders, against the Rams, you can basically run the ball and win the game. I don't think they'll be able to do that against Kansas City. I
Mhm.
think Hurts is gonna have to have some sort of production in the air because I think it'll come down to that where you can't
No,
Yeah.
just run the ball.
I mean,
And I
absolutely
think
have to have some production in the air. And we've also seen in the last few weeks, Saquon may be dealing with a slight injury. possibly limiting how many times he's capable of being on the field. Against Washington last week, we saw Gainwell a good amount of times. And I mean, still very efficient running the ball because that Eagles offensive line is so great in run blocking. But also, the Chiefs defense in the last couple of years has always, or almost always, stepped up in big moments, in big games. So at the end of the day, Hurts is going to have to do something because they're not going to be able to run the ball all game long. The Chiefs will figure out, Andy Reid will figure out some way of stopping the Eagles running to a certain degree to put them in a position where, the Chiefs defense will come up with a big stop in the fourth quarter and put Mahomes back on the field with 2 minutes left. They're going to find a way to do that. And I have full confidence that they'll find a way to do that.
Yeah, other than Bill Belichick, I don't know if there might be a greater defensive mind at limiting your best threat than Steve Spagnuolo, like in NFL history. I mean, he's been able to do that throughout his entire play. He was able to do it with New York, derailing the Patriots' undefeated season.
Yep.
He's done it here in his stint in Kansas City. They're not going to let Saquon just do what he does all game long. And even if he does break that one run, they have the best quarterback on earth. So they're way more equipped to handle that than the Rams were, than the Commanders were, than the Packers were. So I do agree with you. I do think that Hurts is going to have to be doing a bit more heavy lifting than he has done during the rest of the playoffs. Not to say that he's coasted necessarily, but obviously like we were saying, he's not the focal. He hasn't been the focal point of this offense so far throughout this playoff run, throughout their entire winning run, honestly. So it's a big test for him, definitely. But he has shown to be up for the occasion in the previous Super
Yeah.
Bowl.
All right, gentlemen. I guess we're to that point. Who do you think will win the Super Bowl this year?
So, Serge, I'm curious to see what you're going to say
I
because
am because I think I know what Charlie's gonna say.
earlier this episode you were talking about how the reason the Chiefs lost against the Bucks a few years ago is because the Bucks were better in every single area of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that the Eagles are better in every single area of the game too. Obviously disregarding quarterback, but their running back is better, their offensive line is better, their receivers are better, their defensive line is better, their linebackers are better, and their secondary is better.
I think
It's everything.
secondary is the one thing I think you could argue, in my opinion,
I
just
don't
because
think
of
other than Trent McDuffie,
McDuff,
it's very close.
Jalen Watson was phenomenal. Is a phenomenal cornerback, and he was great until he got injured. Then he came back, and now he's been, again, he's a difference maker in that secondary. But I still do agree with you that Philly are better there, and I think that is a very interesting convo. I think though that offensive line also is a little bit that Chiefs offensive line. We didn't really talk about it much. I mean, it has gotten a lot better since Joe Tooney has gone to left tackle, and I feel like as crazy as it sounds, they arguably you could make a case. I'm not saying that they are that the Chiefs are the better pass blocking unit in this Super Bowl, in my opinion. Although, like I said, the Eagles have Mailata, they have Lane Johnson. Although even Mailata, I saw did get burned a few times during this
Talk
playoffs.
about Lane Johnson though.
Yeah, I mean he's unstoppable. He's ageless and phenomenal player. The I'm gonna allude back to something that Kian said when we were doing the intro of this video, that the Chiefs role players do not make mistakes in these type of environments, and it's something that we've seen from their rivals in Buffalo, in Baltimore, in Cincinnati, arguably even that not their best players, but just their players that are asked to contribute in big moments, they don't make mistakes. I do not trust a skill like position group more than Kansas City's in these scenarios to execute what they're asked to do. I trust that honestly, Mahomes can execute the short passing game like he's done all season long. I mean, we saw honestly Jane Daniels in that NFC Championship. He was able to kind of dunk his way down the field before fumbles from almost every player on that offense derailed that. I don't anticipate the Chiefs doing that. And I'm just tired of picking against the Chiefs and being wrong. So I'm gonna go Kansas City. I might be proven wrong, but I've been all year long, but I feel like it's just too safe an option. So I'm going Kansas City.
Yeah. It's interesting. I think this is the embodiment of a battle of the trenches, this game. On both sides of the ball, the offensive versus defensive line is
As
crucial.
most Super Bowls are, though, I feel
as
like.
as
True.
most
That's
games
true,
are,
definitely.
You
like
can't-
generally
yeah.
speaking. But this one, I think, to another degree, because
Yeah.
the Chiefs have to, stop the running game, and the Eagles have to disrupt the passing game. And, those are two, I mean, two, there are only two things, right? There's passing game and running game. And if each one has to stop one of them,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
only, there aren't many options left.
There's a kicking game.
And,
Yeah, true. Special teams. I mean,
well, the
that was a
Chiefs
big
win that
part.
one.
Yeah, no, the Chiefs are a really good special teams.
Great special teams unit.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
I think that it's tough. I haven't picked against the Chiefs very often in the last few seasons, and I don't want to start it now, but I think that the only way that Eagles are beating the Chiefs in this one truly is a blowout.
I actually agree with that
And
a
I
lot,
don't
Charlie.
think that Mahomes is really capable of being blown out right now. I don't think Mahomes, I don't think the Chiefs, I don't think their coaching staff are capable of getting blown out in a game of this magnitude. It happened a few seasons ago against the Bucks. It won't happen again. Um, I think it'll be a really, really close game. But I'm very happy to say that I don't think the Eagles are going to win it. I'll pick the Chiefs too.
Yeah, as me and Charlie, as Giants fans, obviously we don't want to see the Eagles, not only because they're the Eagles, but because they have our star running back who now is
Just because they're the Eagles.
unbeatable, and that
Hmm.
I'm look, I'm gonna go Chiefs also. I think it just comes to pedigree, and I think they will. I very much side with that, Charlie. I wasn't gonna say it, but I think there's a world the Eagles win by 2 or 3 scores. I seriously
Yeah.
think there is a world where that
They're
happens.
pretty
Don't think it
unstoppable.
necessarily has to be a route, but just they have to be in control. Like we saw that Buffalo game against Kansas City, like the regular season game, where they were
Yeah.
kind of like a score ahead, like a score or two ahead of Kansas City the entire way. They didn't get Mahomes in a position where he was down one score in the fourth quarter. That's how you beat them. You have to make sure you stop them early, you get ahead of them early. Which I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm basically
If
just
if
reiterating
you're
what
playing
Charlie
at the
says.
Chiefs
Yeah.
game,
But
if you're playing the Chiefs
you
pace,
have
you
to
can't
be
win.
exactly.
Yeah.
You have to control the tempo, and that's what the Chiefs have been able to do all season long. And I just
Yeah,
don't
I
think it
just
stops
I,
now.
I I actually think comparing this to the Bucks game is very valid because I think the reason the Bucks won that is because they got to Mahomes all the time, and like I think the Eagles have the capability to do that. Obviously, their offensive line is much better, but this Eagles defensive line is so deep and so well, and the amount of packages you can send at Mahomes. You have Zach Bond, who we know has a bunch of you can send so much at him. So I think there's a world the Eagles, the Eagles just have control the whole game and win it. I'm gonna go Kansas City as well. I think I already said that, but it's gonna be a great. I'm extremely excited for this game. I think this is gonna be a fantastic
Yeah,
game. Um, I think even though these teams both have pretty comparable defenses, I think it will still be probably decently high scoring. I think each team might touch
hmm
30, high 20s. Um, yeah, it's gonna be a great one.
Yeah.
I do think there's a big spectrum. I think we could definitely see the Eagles win by a lot. I honestly could see the Chiefs. I could see this Eagles defense crumbling when it matters also. Like we haven't seen it. They could. I think it's less likely, but it could because of the age on their team. Like a lot of these guys just haven't been there. Um, so we could see. We
I
could
mean, I
see,
think,
but
you know, lastly, when talking about the Chiefs' pace and how you can't beat them at their own game, that Bucks Super Bowl is a pretty good comparison because the Bucks did not play at the Chiefs' pace in that game. The Bucks said we're going to play our own way. And why were they able to do that? Well, they have Tom Brady, and Tom Brady is able to play however Tom Brady wants to play. I think the problem for the Eagles in this one is that Jalen Hurts is an inexperienced quarterback when you compare him to Tom Brady. Not inexperienced in most
but
NFL
yeah, I
terms,
feel like that's what
but
I would say.
compared to Brady, he is. And then
Yeah,
also the Eagles coaching staff is not the most experienced. They don't have the most, you know, uh, obviously blanking on head coaching names, and I mean, but Kellen Moore
yeah,
and
just experience
Vic
at this
Fangio.
stage.
and Vic Fangio don't have the same
Sirianni
experience that Tom Brady had. In
came and went. There we go. Came
yeah,
and went quickly. Obviously, draft content to come. Comment your predictions down below. Follow us on all of our social medias. Yeah, mock drafts, I guess, to come. Hoping to bring back the draft live stream again this year as we did not last year, but the years prior, which genuinely might be my favorite thing to do on this channel.
100%.
Mhm.
Our the last live stream we did was incredible. So if you guys haven't, you can go check it out. It's definitely the best produced thing we do here. But yeah, Super Bowl comment picks. What do you think? Key McDermott, Charlie Nidell, Serge Canali, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much for another wonderful NFL season. I counted up the numbers between views and uh between views, between shorts, everything. And I think we've gotten over like 300,000 this season across all our videos and content we posted, which is amazing. We really appreciate you guys. It's awesome. Um, thank you so much for watching. NFL season over. Next season, next year, draft content to come. We'll see you guys next time. Peace.